The third child that I'm introducing to you is Tim. And Tim, again, has very poor parenting. And his mum is inadequate, and actually sometimes she's absent. And it might be through the booze that she uses. She might have gone out on a bender. It might be that she's just shut the door and left him because she can't bear his crying. And so the disturbed attachment cycle that he experiences, he cries, he protests, mum ignores, he protests some more, cries even louder, and mum doesn't respond or says, shut up, just stop it, shut up. And so, unlike Tammy, who became apathetic, Tim is filled with rage. And the beliefs that he starts forming about himself are, I am not safe. I'm not cared for. I'm terrified. People hurt you. The world is dangerous and unpredictable. There is no safe space for me here. There is no space for me here. I am bad. He's not learnt self-regulation skills. So what do you think his behaviour is going to be like at 2 or 3? Massive toddler tantrums. He's got no self-regulation skills. How's he going to be when he's at 5? Going to be running around a lot. 9 or 10? How's he going to be? In the classroom with that substitute teacher, how is he going to be? What's going to be happening to him when he's 17, 22, 25, 30? How will he be behaving? I want to introduce the concept now of trauma. And we can define trauma in one of 2 ways. And with trauma in this, I'm not talking about physical trauma, I'm talking about psychological, emotional trauma. And it's generally defined as one of 2 things. Either an overwhelm of affect, emotions, sensory feelings that you are unable to integrate. You cannot process them. Either that or a belief that you might die. So trauma is sensory, it's in the body, it is somatic, it involves the autonomic nervous system, it is the whole body. The brain that's involved is the base brain. It is the reptilian brain, not the thinking brain. It is the fastest processing. It does not have language. When somebody is in trauma and experiencing trauma, there is only now. There is no past. There is no future. There is only now, because that's what you need to survive and to stay safe. What we're going to do with trauma now is start getting granular about the sensory experience with trauma. And I want to think initially about Tammy. And Tammy has absorbed that fear from mum. And I use the metaphor of shrapnel. And every time that Tammy had an overwhelm of emotion that she couldn't integrate, that was a little piece of shrapnel. So every time that she experienced her mother's fear, every time that she lay in the cot and heard screaming or shouting, she absorbed fear. So the fear, like little pieces of blue shrapnel, and they get stored in the body. And with that shrapnel, Tammy is learning how to behave. And that shrapnel is stored in the body because it was emotion she was unable to integrate. As an infant, the regulation has to come from the external. That's how Tammy would learn. Now let's think about Tim. Get really granular about trauma. And Tim is alone in the cot, and he's lying there and he can see nothing other than darkness. And he can smell stale milk and vomit. He can taste sour milk and again vomit. And he's been lying there for over 24 hours because Mum went out on a bender. Well, she popped out to get some milk, and then she met some friends and she went drinking. And she left him there. And then when she came back, the door slammed. And he heard shouting, and he heard angry men saying, "Shut up!" And he could touch. He could touch. And he felt the nappy rash that had gone from his hip down to his knees. He could feel that nappy rash all over. And he had cold feet and a pain in his stomach because he was hungry. That is the sensory experience of neglect. And all of those senses can combine into an implicit memory that is one piece of shrapnel. So this one piece of green plastic represents the dark, the cold, the hunger, the pain in the stomach, the nappy rash, that sense, the feeling under his fingertips. Those are the experience of neglect. Now, sadly for Tim, it's not just been one incident. There have been a whole load of times that he has experienced neglect of some sort. And the shrapnel changes shape. It's not the same every time. Different shrapnel that gets stored inside the body. That's what trauma really looks like. And for Tim, lying in that cot, it was a belief that he might die. Each incident is going to be unique. They're going to be different shapes, different sizes, lodged in different ways.